Welcome back, everybody. Today we've got the 2026 NFL Draft, 5 stars and 5 busts. I want to highlight some guys that I think are going to be gems of this draft class looking back in a few years from now, as well as some guys that I think are getting overdrafted and may just not pan out in the NFL. So drop a comment who you want your team to select in the 2026 NFL Draft, as well as your favorite prospect in this draft. I'll be scrolling through all the comments responding to you guys. So hit that subscribe ahead of draft night, and let's get right into it. Starting it off, it's going to be Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, broke all the records for linebackers at the draft combine and was really a force to be reckoned with at Ohio State over his career. I think if they were coming off the national championship going into this season, Sonny Styles would be a bona fide top 5 pick in this draft. However, he's getting a lot of value just due to their early exit and disappointment last season, but none of it is due to blame on Sonny Styles' shoulders. He is a complete freak on the defensive side of the ball, one of the smartest players in this draft class. He can guard the running backs and tight ends out in coverage, and he showed that sub 4.5 speed at the combine. It's everything you're looking for in a draft pick. I know it's a little high to be drafting a linebacker, but some guys are just game changers at their position, and I think Sonny Styles is just that. He was originally mocked in the kind of 10 to 15 range as far as the draft picks go, but I think there's no way he escapes the top 7 anymore, and I especially like the landing spot with Washington, with head coach Dan Quinn wanting to regain that defensive identity. I think he would pair well with Mikey Sanders still and Jaden Daniels on the time frame, as well as pairing him with Bobby Wagner, the potential Hall of Famer going forward, to have a 1-year bridge where he can kind of pass the torch to Sonny Styles and show him the wisdom. I think it would do wonders for his career, and he could really set up Washington to be another playoff contender for years ahead. And now let's shift gears to the unfortunate side. It's going to be the bust here. Starting it off, it's going to be Ruben Bain, the edge from Miami. Now, I'm not a guy that likes to read too much into the NFL Combine and the measurements and all that jazz. However, the arm length was a little concerning for me. And I say this because he's going to be the first-round pick in the NFL Draft in the last 20 seasons to have an arm length of less than 31 inches. That's just a stat that blows my mind, and I think it's a little bit concerning, knowing that you're going to the pro level, you're going to be going against the biggest offensive tackles that you can find on this planet. And Ruben Bain, I just don't think he's capable of being a stud as far as a top 3 pick goes. And I say this because I think he could still be of value at the bottom half of the top 10 in the NFL Draft. But teams like New York Jets and Arizona Cardinals at picks 2, 3, and even the Titans at 4, I just would not waste my pick on Ruben Bain, who I think is probably the most pro-ready edge rusher right now, but I don't think he has the upside to really develop into a multi-year Pro Bowler or a real stud that you're probably looking for when you draft an edge rusher at the top of the draft. So I would be fading Ruben Bain early in the drafts. And now let's go back to the positive. It's going to be Mike Washington, the running back from Arkansas at the Combine, ran a 4.33, the fastest amongst all running backs at the Combine. And man, after watching the tape, I really like the way he plays. He's a hard downhill runner, but he can also have the breakaway speed. I think he needs to improve a little bit about the outside zone and just like getting to the outside. However, going into the NFL, I think he's going to be part of a committee, and he's going to be perfect in that speed back system. He's great in pass protection, so I think whichever team gets him in day 2 or day 3 is going to be getting an absolute gem as far as their draft day value. I think teams are shifting towards that committee approach at running back, and Mike Washington is the perfect kind of lightning to whichever thunder you have as a running back ahead of him. So in a 1A, 1B situation, I am very bullish on Mike Washington in the NFL Draft. Now we go back to the bust. It's going to be David Bailey, another edge rusher that's early in the drafts at Texas Tech. Another guy at the Combine that, yeah, his performance showed himself very well as far as his attributes and his 40 time all looked great. But the main concerning part was his change of direction in all of the individual drills. It just looked really sloppy. It's something that concerned me enough to kind of move him down my board a little bit. I think he is slightly underweight for an edge rusher in the NFL at the pro level. He's going to have to bulk up, but there's no doubt that he has a high ceiling as far as potential goes. I just think he needs 1 to 2 years to fully develop into his body and actually be a pro at the NFL level. So I think teams probably in the 10 to 15 range could use David Bailey as an edge rusher, but there were multiple times where I saw him get mocked in the top 6 picks, and I think that would just be a crazy decision because there's a lot of risk attached to drafting him. There's a good chance that he actually does just flop as a prospect. With some of these guys with such high potential just never get to pan out, and some of that's their fault. A lot of it's also just development on the NFL coaching staffs, but hopefully David Bailey finds a great landing spot and pans out. I will be for sure rooting for him, but for now, I think he's just slightly overvalued as far as NFL draft standard goes. And then we go to Eli Stowers. The tight end from Vanderbilt is currently the tight end 2 or tight end 3, depending on who you kind of follow to or listen to. He's definitely behind Kenyon Sadiq, but a lot of people are saying that there is a big gap in between. I just don't get that. I think he could be a late first rounder in this draft. He set the combine record for a tight end as far as vertical goes. He is great at just getting the high point of the football, especially in the red zone. I think he fits more of like the Kyle Pitts, Isaiah Likely build, where he's essentially just a bigger wide receiver at tight end. He's great for all those speed systems and a bunch of motion in your offense. I think getting him in the Sean McVay system or potentially in the Chargers system with Mike McDaniels coming over, how he loves to have athletes at every position. Pairing him with another tight end also wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. You can have 2 tight end sets and be able to mix him, who's not the greatest of run blockers, but have him with a big physical tight end. And all of a sudden, your offense just gets another dynamic playmaker. So I'm very bullish on Eli Stowers, assuming he gets his way into the late first, early second. And I really don't think there's that much of a gap between him and Kenyon Sadiq. Then we go on to Keldrick Falk, another edge rusher from Auburn here. Another guy with high potential. However, it's just very raw in the sense that he ranked 150th in pass rush win rate this past season at Auburn. There's no doubt the intangibles are there for him to be an elite edge rusher. But as of right now, you're embodying a ton of risk with this draft pick, especially if you take him in the top 10 to top 15 picks. He's a guy that might not even produce in the first 2 to 3 years of his career. You're banking on a lot to go right. I think he needs to be drafted into a team that's actually already productive on defense. If you're counting on him to be the kind of the sole playmaker or kind of fixed to your defense in year one, I think you're making the wrong decision taking Keldrick Falk, which I think a lot of people are mocking him to the Bengals, which I just don't see that ever working. You're leaving Trey Hendrickson out to the Wolves, and you're just going to bring in this young kid who's very raw as far as potential goes and just hope that he can turn it on from day one. It is not a recipe for success, so hopefully he's able to slide and find himself to a top landing spot in order to make the most of his potential as his career progresses. Back to the studs we go with Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver from Georgia. Recently just ran a 4.35 40-yard dash, and he's known for his speed and explosiveness as a wide receiver. However, I think he's much more than that. You saw at Georgia, he really wasn't used to his full potential early on. Early in the season, he was used like Xavier Worthy, essentially, in all those wide receiver screens, trying to get him in open space behind the line of scrimmage. However, down the stretch in the final back half of the season, you saw even into the college football playoff, he was kind of evolved as far as his route tree goes. He was used everywhere and was clearly the focus on this wide receiver core and overall team. He was the identity of the offense, and everything kind of revolved around him. And you really got to see the full potential that Zachariah can actually be in the NFL. And I think the sky is the limit for him. I think he is not getting nearly enough respect. Lumping him in with Casey Concepcion and other kind of second-tier wide receivers in this draft class, I think he is firmly ahead of them. I think he should be in the top 4 to 5 wide receivers in this draft class. I think he's going to be a steal in the second round for whichever team gets their hands on him. I think he would pair well with a big X wide receiver, and he can really do everything across the middle. Similar to Jameson Williams, he can just take it across the middle and you blink and he's gone for a touchdown. I think he has that potential. If he's used correctly, I think he can be a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL. So Zachariah is definitely a stud for me. But then we go back to the busts and potential guys that are overvalued. It's going to be Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. I was just singing the praises of Eli Stowers, but unfortunately, we got to water down the value of Kenyon Sadiq. Let's keep it a buck here. Down the stretch, he was averaging only 3 receptions a game, and when they needed him the most in the playoffs, and especially down the last 5 games of the season, he was averaging just 35 receiving yards per game. I believe it. All the intangibles, all the 40 measurements were incredible, setting all types of records. However, until you see the real production on the field, I have full reason to be a little bit skeptical. I think he plays like George Kittle, but he actually just needs to get the ball more, and hopefully he actually is able to produce like that with the target volume. So whichever team drafts him, I hope that he pans out well, but as of right now, if you're taking him in the top 15, I just don't see him being a home run, slam dunk kind of prospect from day one as far as tight ends go. You've seen this year in, year out with Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren hit the ground running, and then maybe in the next year you just overcompensate and take a tight end of a kind of lower caliber tier just way too high in order to chase that value. I think teams are probably going to do that with Sadiq. I think he's a late first rounder in my big board goes, but I wouldn't be shocked if a team like Carolina in the mid-teens is able to pull the trigger on Kenyon Sadiq, but I just don't think that's going to be a wise decision going forward. We got Carnell Tate, another stud, a wide receiver from Ohio State, very bullish. So we've kind of mixed the reviews here as far as the combine goes, how much matters. I know Carnell Tate, 4.54 40-yard dash. There was also some reports saying that he ran in the high 4.4s. Anyway, I just do not care. His film says everything. He is a game wrecker. The one red flag would just be that he played alongside Jeremiah Smith, who attracted so many double teams that you didn't really get the full evidence that he could be a wide receiver one and command attention on his own. But I think he's absolutely capable of that. He had his biggest games against Indiana and Michigan, so he's no stranger to the big moment. I think he is a for sure top 10 pick in my eyes. I think Cleveland, staying in his college home state, would be a perfect fit, as well as pairing him with a smaller wide receiver. So a team like the Dolphins or the Ravens, I would definitely kind of hold my eye out for because he would pair perfectly with them. He's a big X wide receiver. My pro comp for him is probably a T. Higgins type guy. You just throw it to him down the field, he's going to come down with it. I think he's probably the best pro-ready day one wide receiver from scratch here, and I think he's going to set the NFL on fire in 2026, so I'm very, very bullish on Carnell Tate. And then we've got a bust here in Jonah Coleman, the running back from Washington. Yes, I just don't see the true upside. There's not too much flash to his game. He's probably going to get drafted as the RB2 in this draft class, but I just don't really see it. A career where he just kind of is known as a David Montgomery. He's kind of the hammer of the offense, but not much more than that. I think you're drafting him too high if you're trying to kind of feature him as a 3-down running back. Let's not forget, he's probably going to go in the same range where Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson went last year, but he's not nearly the type of prospect they were. If I needed a running back, I would just kind of punt at this point and get a guy like Mike Washington or Jadarian Price later and be able to develop them rather than risking some high draft capital to just get a marginally better running back prospect. Last year was kind of the year of the running backs, and this year is not, so you're going to see teams chase running back a little bit too heavily. And I think Coleman, unfortunately, well, fortunately for his money and his bank account, he's going to get drafted a little bit too high. But if he was in last year's draft class, he wouldn't have even been talked about as a top 5 running back. So right now, I just would not pull the trigger early in the second round, and I would probably wait till the mid-third to give him a chance on my roster. And then that is going to do it for the 5 studs and 5 busts for the 2026 NFL Draft. Leave a comment below if you like this type of style video, as well as any others that you want to see going forward. I'm happy to make whatever video you guys want. And continue to hit that subscribe button. I really, really appreciate it. And that is going to do it. Peace.